Hey, everybody. Welcome back to the Further Forward podcast. I'm your host, Ashley Mitchell. Thank you for tuning in to another episode. It's nice to be with you. I'm sitting on the couch in my favorite spot next to my cat. He's in his favorite spot. So we're just like having a cozy little afternoon over here while I can hear my neighbor's children screaming bloody murder. I'm almost afraid for what is going on because they are screaming. They must be chasing each other or something. But also, one is like 1.5 and the other is like 9. So I am both calm and peaceful and living my life. And my peace is totally disrupted by these people. And I'm trying to just like keep it together. Okay. How was your experience of Beth's episode last week? Can we talk about that for a moment? I am so happy that you got to hear her, experience her in that way, especially if that was your first time. I knew that when we were going to have this conversation, I knew without a shadow of a doubt that it would be a completely unedited episode, that we were going to hit record and that whatever we said, knowing that the recording was going, we were going to say it and stand behind it because that's what we do. And I was just so happy about the level of intimacy that we were able to achieve in that episode, in that interview. And as I was reflecting over the week, I was like, it's got to be this now or nothing. The guest episodes have to have a level of intimacy. That doesn't mean that everybody's going to be a close friend. Doesn't mean that they're going to be a friend at all. But there has to be a level of intimacy, honesty, openness. There has to be some kind of willingness to go there. Do you know what I'm saying? And I think that as I cultivate more love and respect and openness in myself, and obviously more certainty around my becoming, not in a way that like I am certain that like I'm becoming this person, but I am certain that I am comfortable with what comes and who I am becoming and what happens as a result of that becoming. As I cultivate all of that in myself, I want that reflected back to me in as many areas of my life as possible. And since this is my podcast, I mean, obviously I have direct control over that to some extent. So that's what I'm reflecting on. And I just have this feeling, I want this for her, but I also just have this feeling that her work is going to become more public facing as time goes on. I think that if I can trust like what I see from her and just kind of energetically what I feel, it feels like with the death of both of her parents and becoming an athlete and a runner, and it just feels like she's completing like this cycle, that she's going to walk into this new portal, this new place in life, and that we're all going to be able to witness it and ultimately benefit from who she is. Okay. So, what are we talking about today? I just mentioned sort of self-trust, and I think that in its purest form today is about self-trust, but the journey to get there, because this is not like, I'm not going to call this episode self-trust, right? But that's kind of what we're talking about. We're talking about trusting yourself. We're talking about carving your own journey. We're talking about potentially nonlinear paths, but the way I'm going to do it is to talk about Pilates, girl. Don't hang up the phone yet. Hold on. I'm going to talk about Pilates, and I'm going to talk about not letting the haters win. So in order to help me paint this picture, I have to give you a little bit of background on Pilates if you don't know it already. So Joseph Pilates, he's this German dude. He grows up, he's kind of a sick kid. He has asthma, he has rickets, he has rheumatoid fever. And word on the street is that he uses fitness, movement to help heal himself, to get stronger, and then it eventually becomes his method. Okay. So he uses diving, he uses boxing, he uses gymnastics, bodybuilding, he also pulls from the Greeks and the Romans. This is really important to note because the idea of taking from different methodologies, from different sort of proven methods and pulling them together, connecting dots that previously weren't connected or that weren't connected in the way that you see them, that's a thread that's important in this conversation. So now fast forward to World War I, Joseph Pilates is in an internment camp in England. He is still working on his method. He's now creating his own equipment based on whatever is around him. And he starts creating the things that we know of now as all these like Pilates apparati, right? The reformer, the arc barrel, et cetera, et cetera. And he's also starting to use influences of yoga and even sort of watching animals like cats, how they move and stuff like that, like their instincts. So he helps the sick and the injured around him using his method and using the apparatus that he creates. Now, he goes back to Germany and he is asked to train the German army. He says no. He goes to America. He meets his wife, Clara, on the ship. They go to New York and they open his studio. This is in 1926, okay? And what was said was that all kinds of people flocked to him, ballet dancers, circus performers, etc. But it was really the dancers that raved about him because they noticed improved technique. They were able to rehab their injuries. And so obviously all of this informed their performances. It made their performances better. This is point number 2 that's really interesting to me because as a Black woman in a muscular body who's always engaged in high intensity activities, the narrative has always been that Pilates is not for you, girl. That Pilates is for people who look like ballerinas or who could look like ballerinas if they just did enough Pilates, right? It's too expensive for you. You're not going to see yourself reflected. There's no Black people there. There's no Black instructors, et cetera, et cetera. And what it looks like, just from the very little that I know, is that that was not Joseph Pilates' intention. His intention was that this was a method for every body. There are so many apparatus for a reason. You could literally tailor Pilates based on the body that you have in front of you, and that you could use all these different pieces of equipment to achieve whatever results that person is looking for or whatever you're trying to solve for in their bodies. So because he had this movement method, it obviously had a bigger umbrella. So he had this philosophy around it called contrology. Now I'm going to read quick from his book, Return to Life Through Contrology. This was written in 1945 because you might be like, well, what the fuck is contrology? Okay. Contrology is complete coordination of body, mind, and spirit. Contrology develops the body uniformly, corrects wrong postures, restores physical vitality, invigorates the mind, and elevates the spirit. There's much more to be said, but I think that's plenty. I also just want to note, you could hear in this the influences of other methodologies. I certainly hear yoga in that, right? The connection of mind, body, spirit, potentially a little bit of the yamas and niyamas, right? You got like breath work in there. You got a little bit of even what I've learned through boxing for the last couple of years, this idea of pairing breath with movement and being able to settle the nervous system, even while the nervous system is in this intense place of activation, being able to sort of like focus the mind and use that to direct the body to exert the kind of force that you're trying to exert. I can't even tell you how much I love movement. I know that I sound like a nerd, but anyway, so contrology, right? Obviously, teachers come to work with him, for him, study under him. And these first generations of teachers called the elders, they would go and they would teach and they would open their own studios and etc. And over time, they added exercises, they evolved exercises, they created their own methods, they pioneered contemporary Pilates. This is point number 3. So Joseph Pilates pulled from other methods to create his own. And then the teachers that he trained took what he created and also expanded the idea of what it could be and what bodies could do, and et cetera, et cetera. So now we're in 2026 where Pilates has exploded, right? It's like blowing everything else out of the water, and rightfully so. Or not even rightfully so. And as a result of that, it's like a kind of an obvious extension, not a rightfully so. There's now a battle, right? Or there are several battles. Like, should you do Pilates or should you do this? Or should you do Pilates or should you do that? But even more in the Pilates world, it's like the battle between contemporary Pilates, classical Pilates, and then Pilates inspired movements like sculpt, like fusion, like solid core, like stuff on a Legree machine and things like that. I've watched this stuff happen online with sort of terror and curiosity. And the more training I do, the more I understand why people are pissed. And this is true in every method, or I think if you are an expert in something, if you've been studying something for a long time, if you go to college for something, if you've trained your whole life in something, and then people come in and do some version of it that makes it watered down and it makes it lose its essence, you would be pissed too. I get it. And as someone who has already invested thousands of dollars and hours that she does not have, I also feel this like knee-jerk reaction to want to be like, no. Like I'm trained. I'm trained in an internationally recognized method. I'm very focused on this and very serious, and I'm committed to my learning. And my class is not just like 50 minutes of pulsing to the beat. Like I get it. But this gets me to the point of the podcast. These disagreements over what Pilates is and isn't, what the elders intended or didn't intend or whatever, has created this vacuum for the Pilates police. This is like this colloquial term that we use online now, right? And it's mainly a bunch of able-bodied, thin, white women Pilates instructors who have the time and energy to go on the internet and essentially bully. I'm sure that they don't think that they're bullying, but they're essentially bullying other instructors whom they deem as kind of traveling so far from classical Pilates, right? So you see a lot of things online like, that's not what Joseph Pilates built. That's not what Joseph Pilates intended. That's not real Pilates. You're not doing it right. I'm so sad about where this method is going. And I would think that, you know, we can borrow a little bit from Dr. Becky here, the great Dr. Becky, of two things can be true. I think you have to be able to hold space for the both and, right? So you have to be able to hold the boom of the method and the dilution of the method. You have to hold the trends that will inevitably pop up. You have to be holding space for misrepresentation of the method, for the lack of education, for instructors who have no idea about anatomy and physiology and breathing mechanics. You have to hold space for clients who will inevitably get hurt, get pissed, get disenchanted because they might be in a class with someone who is undereducated or they're just pulling exercises off of Instagram. I really get it. I really, really do. And the cream always rises to the top, baby. Always does. You can hold space for being pissed, but you can also hold space for your own excellence and your own integrity and your own evolution and your own education. Because the savvy client, they want someone who's had some longevity. They want someone who's educated. They want someone who makes them feel good in their bodies. They want someone who could help them heal injuries. They want someone who can help them come back from pregnancy and learn how to move in a different body again. Don't get caught up in being whiny and mean. Get caught going deep when everyone else is going wide. Don't get caught being caught up in drama. because it's always going to be there. Wanting to be all up in that conversation and just like creating more discord, that comes from ego. It comes from the lower self. It comes at a price. It comes at your peace. It's a lower frequency. It does not get you where you want to go. It's the more evolved self, which we're all trying to get to, ideally. It's the more evolved self that's like, you know what? There's a lot that's out of my control, right? What do I do with these feelings that I have? What do I want to create from these feelings that I have? What conversations need to be had? What could come of this? How do I stay in my own lane? Do I need to expand my lane? Where am I being too rigid? It comes back to, wanting to be right versus wanting connection. Sometimes we just want to be right because it feels good, but it always sort of collapses us. Wanting connection is what opens everything up, right? Because if we're really talking about original intentions, then this method is expansive. And so it's just like, how do we get it there? So I want to kind of speak to two tracks. One, if you're a person like me who has felt triggered or insecure, or maybe you even been bullied. To be clear, no one's ever said anything to me directly. It's just the barrage of what I see has made me feel like, oh my God, wait, am I doing something wrong? Did I do this wrong? Because my other certifications, becoming a trainer and a group fitness instructor, et cetera, were very linear and very, I would say, like traditional, what you would expect. But coming into Pilates, I did it a little bit differently. I didn't even have a desire to do Pilates because of the reasons that I mentioned to you earlier in the pod until I was postpartum and my PT was trying to teach me diaphragmatic breathing. We were doing like very basic Pilates stuff, learning how to bring my ribs to my hips and breathe there and create stability through my pelvis and through my rib cage. But I had no prior language to it. I didn't know what she was doing, nor could I recreate it without her. I was just following instructions because I just needed to get better. And then fast forward, my husband was training with this woman named Lizzie. Shout out to Lizzie. And she's super smart and she's really sharp. And so I hired her for one session. I was like, I have these nagging injuries. And y'all, I was married to a PT in my first marriage. And I still had things that were kind of unsolvable in my body in terms of like, just like injury flare-ups and things that always hurt. And so I did this session with Lizzie. And yeah, we did some strength training, but she mostly showed me Pilates. And she gave me exercises to work on that were Pilates based. And they fucking worked. And I was like, wait, what? Hold on. Like I could use these exercises and all the pain that I'd been feeling for years would go away from this core work that she's giving me. It just didn't feel real. And so then I started to really listen and get curious. And so when a fitness conference came into town and they had a mat Pilates certification, I did it. And this is the first kind of point of where I kind of like split off. Because in the industry, especially amongst instructors who did take more traditional paths, who are a little more seasoned, who have accumulated lots of education, we kind of scoff at these weekend certs, not weekend continuing education, but weekend certifications, as in you really can't teach someone mat Pilates in 8 hours. Like the mental gymnastics that this program does to make you believe that you are certified to then go teach Pilates after being in a conference room for 8 hours is just, I think it was like over 2 days. It's not a thing. Okay. Because you're so undertrained. You're so undereducated. You have the most bare minimum to be in a room. Okay. And I already had almost a decade of experience by the time I did this certification. So even I knew that this was incredibly incomplete, but it was scratching an itch. I was getting the certification because this was the best way for me to think about like, okay, is this something that I really want to teach, or is this just something that I want to learn from me? And once I knew that this was something that I really wanted to do, then I went and invested more time, more money, etc. But I think about often as I'm watching these women bully other, mostly women on the internet, I think about all the times when I felt weird about the journey that I took, that I didn't just jump right into a comprehensive certification, that I took my time, that I kind of went around the bend a little bit, that I, did a certification that wasn't really great the first time. And I just think, what if I listened to what they were saying? What if I stopped what I was doing? What if I didn't go after what I ultimately wanted because some random people that I don't know and have no investment in are saying that there is a right way and a wrong way? Can you imagine why this is so universal? Why this matters is how much does this happen to all of us? There are definitely times when I'm in my own way because of previous experiences or whatever that make me a little bit fearful. But most of the time, 9 times out of 10, and if you've been listening to this podcast or whatever, you know that this is true because I've talked about this before. Most of the time, what makes me second guess myself is someone else's voice. It could be my mother's, it could be another relative, it could be an ex, it could be someone random on the internet that I think is more qualified or more educated than me, and they will stop me in my fucking tracks and make me second guess. Think about all of the work that doesn't get made. Think about all of the connections that never happen, the love, the friendship, the nonprofits that never get formed, think of all the things that don't happen, all of the light and the passion that people have to give that don't get to happen because of people like these women getting into people's heads and making them too insecure to try. It's actually like sad. Because when you're being vulnerable, when you're putting yourself out there, when you're trying something new, you want the visibility because you want the support, but you don't want the visibility that comes with the critique because the vision is still fragile. It's still forming. And so I want to remind you that like people don't have to get you. They don't have to like your shit. They don't have to understand why you're making it. They don't have to understand the journey. Let them talk. Let them say what they have to say. You do you. You work on healing your shit. You work on standing in your own integrity and your own sovereignty. You work on doing less harm in the process of your own evolution. You recognize that the more you know, the less you know. So you got to keep going. You know how to be an active participant in your own success. So just do that. Let them talk shit. You don't have to take it. And I say this never as a person who has it figured out, but always as a person who has nothing figured out, but am always in process of figuring it out and can think on this level with you. And I also, for the people who are doing the bullying, I get it. The compassionate part of me totally gets it. You've spent your time, your money, your life. You pour everything into this. It does not pay well. It looks like it pays well. The clients are paying well, but it does not pay well. You go from job to job to job to client to client to client. You're working your ass off. And these people just come in and totally bastardize something that means a lot to you, something that has potentially changed your life, something that maybe you hold sacred, something that you have so much respect for because you know the power of what it can do for people. I 100% get that. It's just that what is your intention behind what you do, what you say to people? Because you always have a choice. So what are you going to do? You can belittle people. You can complain. You can intimidate new instructors. You can make people feel bad for their choices. You can leave no room for people's evolution. You can leave no space for people to learn and figure it out and make mistakes. Or you could say, there's a lot of people coming into this right now, and I feel like there's not a ton of education. There's not a ton of consistency. Damn. Could I be a mentor? Damn, could I create a program? What could I do to be a part of the solution? Because again, this goes beyond Pilates. This goes to so much of what we see online. There's just so many complaints and so little doing, on and on and on. It's so endless. So be a part of the solution. You don't like it, so go fucking change it. Hello? There are pathways. There are pathways for creating change. If at the end of the day, what you really care about is the preservation of what you hold sacred, then think about the barriers to entry. Think about why someone would go do a weekend cert over something that's more credentialed. Think about who doesn't see themselves in this role and what you could do about that. Think about, as a leader in this space, what you can do to create space for more people to be a part of it. Because we know, because it's been proven, that shame and guilt, yelling at people, especially online, it's not how you create change. Because guess what? So many things would be different if it were that simple, right? Right? We know that. So we're going to stop resorting to these low level, low frequency methods of trying to get people to do what we want them to do. And we're just going to create better pathways for people to make better choices, right? Right. I just had to get that off of my chest because I don't want other women leaving themselves behind in the ways that I've left myself behind, because I've let people make me feel insecure, because I've let it happen. And I don't want that for you. And I don't want it for me anymore either. So that's all I got. We'll talk next week. Have a great one. If this episode resonates with you, send it to someone. If you have the Pilates police in your life, go ahead and send it to them. But also, if you have the Pilates police in your life, why are you hanging out with people who are mean? Make better choices. Okay. Bye.